All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and call to order the May 4th, 2015 work session of the Salisbury City Council. We have a full agenda and a full closed session this evening, so we are going to try to move through tonight's agenda as swiftly as possible. We may end up, I'm hoping, a little ahead of schedule. But before we do any of that, I want to do something that's not on the schedule, and in order to do so, I'm going to come to the podium and I'm going to ask Ms. McLean from ABC 47 to join me. So, last week, the mayor delivered a proclamation, and it was at our legislative session, and that's quite all right. Okay. But we wanted to let people know about Entrepreneurship Week, and so I'm going to read that proclamation again. So I'm going to say entrepreneurship about 15 times, and you're all just going to have to bear with me. And I'm going to read that again because today is actually the start of Entrepreneurship Week. And then I'm going to let you say anything you'd like to say about Entrepreneurship Week, if you don't mind. All right, so with that, I'm reading this on behalf of Mayor Ireton. Whereas Salisbury University is celebrating its inaugural Entrepreneurship Week, May 4th through 9th, 2015. And whereas Salisbury University and its Franklin P. Purdue School of Business have long been supporters of the entrepreneurial spirit in our community, increasing entrepreneurship awareness in our community by hosting business funding competitions, and whereas Salisbury University will host business entrepreneurship competitions during Entrepreneurship Week, I wasn't kidding, about 15 times, including the Invest in My Idea poster competition, the Gull Cage Shark Tank competition, and the Richard Bernstein Achievement Award for Excellence Business Plan competition. And whereas Salisbury University will host the 4th round of its Philip E. and Carol R. Ratcliffe Shore Hatchery program during Entrepreneurship Week, and whereas Entrepreneurship Week culminates on Saturday, May 9th, 2015, when Salisbury University partners with local news affiliate 47 ABC and Maryland Capital Enterprises to again host an open casting call for Shark Tank. And I think it's important to mention that we are one of a select few cities, you know, with the likes of Boston, San Diego, Denver, etc., chosen for that. The business-themed reality show, which offers a venue for entrepreneurs to present their ideas and business plans to investors who have the potential to fund their startup businesses. Now, therefore, I, James Ireton Jr., and that's not me, that's, you know, Mayor Ireton, Mayor of the City of Salisbury, do hereby proclaim May 4th through 9th, 2015 as Salisbury University Entrepreneurship Week in our city, in special recognition of Salisbury University's continued support of the business owners of tomorrow in our community, and in appreciation of the boost to our local economy when these new businesses provide new jobs. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand in the seal of the City of Salisbury this 27th day of April, 2015. And with that, I'm going to hand the podium over to you, the microphone over to you. I'd also like to quickly acknowledge that Robbie Sheehan from Salisbury University is in the room. So thank you for being here, Robbie.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. This is so exciting for us. We are expecting about twice the number of participants we had last year. We are geared up for 300 entrepreneurs to come into town. We're going to have 5 cameras running simultaneously, shooting their proposals. And I hope that the council will consider this my personal invitation to come by and see what's going on.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this is also kind of the Salisbury University show today, because next on the agenda we have a presentation from the Salisbury University Environmental Studies program. So I'm going to invite the students from Salisbury University to come forward if you'd like, or to speak from the microphone. And I can advance the slides if you'd like me to, if you'll just give me a little nod, tip of the hat, something.
Hi. Thank you guys for having us. My name is Jared Novia. This is Natalie Cohen, Ryan Tant, and Carrie Chopper. And we're here to talk about the City of Salisbury's green initiatives. This is a small part of what we studied, and we're looking at different green initiatives that the City of Salisbury can take in order to become a greener and more environmental friendly city. So we also worked with community gardens and other aspects of Salisbury, but we're going to be talking about what us for research. I myself researched about environmental justice, and unfortunately I could talk about an hour about this, but I have a pamphlet for all you guys to read. So hopefully I got enough, but
Thank you.
we all have our own pamphlets.
Thank you very much.
You all can understand what we researched. We have different case studies of how we research, and we have all of our sources and references at the end of our packets. But just for my research, I looked at environmental justice and how it can be implemented in Salisbury. It's recognized both by the state and federal government. Environmental justice goes under the radar a lot of the time, so I wanted to have this packet to educate a lot of people about what environmental justice can do and how we can adopt policies of how environmental justice can be implemented into Salisbury. But I'm now going to turn it over to Natalie, and she's going to talk about the urban tree canopy and what it can do for Salisbury.
Thank you. Mr. Heath, please. Thank you.
Okay, so as Jared said, my name's Natalie. I worked with Kyle Doss, but he's not here today. But I will be speaking on behalf of the trees. I compiled a condensed UTC assessment. UTC is Urban Tree Canopy Assessment and Plan for the City of Salisbury. So what I handed out to you, this is a condensed UTC assessment and plan, which is intended to provide guidance for the city and the residents, and we've identified economic, environmental, and social benefits for increasing the UTC. And also we've supplied tools and steps in terms of grants and organizations that city council or city representatives can seek. So just to start, urban tree canopy is defined as a layer of leaves, branches, and stems of trees that cover the ground when viewed from above. So here we have like an aerial shot. That's how they map it out, and they're able to give an estimate of the UTC. And so the Department of Natural Resources, actually they teamed up with the University of Vermont Spatial Analysis Laboratory. You can go to the next slide. And they have conducted a urban tree canopy assessment for Wicomico County as well as the municipalities. So as you can see, Salisbury falls into approximately 26% current tree canopy with the potential of increasing it to 54%. You can go to the next one. So benefits of urban tree canopy, there's a lot of benefits. I think stormwater management is probably the number one I'd like to highlight. A lot of cities have used urban trees as a best management practice for reducing the amount of runoff and it reduces the amount of runoff and erosion and pollutants entering rivers. So it increases the soil structure, so it allows for an increased capacity of stormwater infiltration. Also, riparian buffers, so I mean, we have the Wicomico River right out there. Establishing a riparian buffer, which are zones of trees planted along the river, allow for reducing the amount of pollutants entering the river and from stormwater, and it slows erosion and maintains the banks. And Wicomico County's watershed implementation plan is pretty expensive to meet those goals. So I think a riparian buffer is a really economically viable approach to meeting our total maximum daily loads. Downtown revitalization is a major aspect in the city's plan for Salisbury. So trees have been, there's a lot of evidence that trees increase property value, and retail strips, if they're lined with trees, it increases shopping habits, and it has positive consumer effects. Also the river walk, it's pretty barren up until the river, so I think adding trees would form a nice aesthetic, pleasing, river walk that would attract more people to downtown Salisbury, and it would slow down on the pollution. and there's aesthetic qualities, and there's some new data that is linking a reduction in crime to urban parks and urban tree canopy. Jake, you go ahead. Thank you. And so possible urban tree canopy for Salisbury. Just briefly, residential streets, riparian buffers, city property, vacant lots, parking lots, open space. I know the vacant lot across from Rise Up, they're going to broadcast some pollinator seeds. So that's really awesome. So just this kind of idea of, though it might be private, a temporary, something, some kind of root system in there to loosen up the soil a little bit. Parts of the Wacomico River are classified as critical area of the Chesapeake Bay. So, public right-of-ways, there's a lot of potential. And I've also, we can't increase the urban tree canopy without both the city and private property. So residentials, or residents, will be a part of this UTC campaign as well. And then I think I have one more slide. The Arbor Day Foundation has tree cities, and if Salisbury were to adopt these for, standards, and to establish a community tree board, they could potentially be a tree city, and I know the city is interested in becoming, a sustainable city, so this would be a great component to that. And I think that might be it. I'm not totally sure if there's another slide up there. Okay, and so these are just organizations and opportunities to get free trees for both the city and residents, and I even put future SU students up there to, maybe help out with the issue as well. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
Do you have one more copy of your packet? Yeah, I have some notes on it, but it's okay. Thanks, Mom.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You can go ahead and change the slide. You can actually change it one more time. Thank you. Okay, so Ryan and I looked at energy last semester, and you may ask, why energy? Really, the only reason why we did it is because we found this astonishing statistic. It's 42% of Maryland's energy was imported in 2010, making it the 5th largest importer nationwide. In 2011, Maryland used 4,358 gigawatt hours, which requires more than 2 million tons of coal, which is insane. So when you think about these numbers, how can I help? So what we did is we developed this set of brochures, one for renters, one for homeowners, and one policy brochure. And basically all it is for renters, it goes in depth on how a renter can, consume less energy and save the environment and their money as well. And these are in the packet I just handed out to you guys. There's also a homeowner's brochure, which is a lot more information, but much more condensed than the renter's brochure. It's just, renters are usually first-time renters or don't really know how to save energy on their own, so it's good for them to have a little more direction. And then the last brochure is a policy brochure. Basically all it looks at is the programs through Empower Maryland, which is really, really useful for people around here because 70% of this community rents, so it's really important for them to take advantage of these policies. And the first two brochures, the homeowners and the renters brochure, says things like, plant trees in your yard, open the drapes in the winter time to let natural light in and heat your home naturally, and vice versa for summer. Lastly, we wanted to highlight the physical infrastructure side, which is what Ryan mainly did, so I'm going to throw it over to him.
All right, so you flip the slide, Jake? Thanks. All right, so we came up with this Green Certified Property certification. It's basically like a LEED certification, but more towards residential houses. And so basically it utilizes a point system. They could get points for making sustainable alterations to the property, such as changing light bulbs, installing insulation, having the house energy audited, which is free through the Empower Maryland program, and as well as being bike friendly, because bike SBY is a huge thing around here. And the nice thing is that the Environmental Studies Department at Salisbury is going to be one of the overseeing evaluators to this program. So like we're backing it like as ourselves, like our whole department is. So we're really behind it. Why should it be instilled? Well, like Kara said, 70% of this community is like renter based, and not all landlords maintain the properties to a even sort of sustainable or decent level of energy efficiency. Like for myself, I paid $500 in oil bills every month in the winter. It's absolutely awful because of lack of insulation. And also, Salisbury's, the city of Salisbury is striving to become part of the state of Maryland municipality. So one of the actions that we taken to achieve points towards that certification is the residential energy efficiency. And so through the packets that we gave you, all the brochures, it will increase awareness to the community, giving them ways to conserve electricity and lower electricity bills as well by creating more efficient housing. And this initiative is more than just about energy. It includes water efficiency, waste reduction, and recycling, as well as other aspects of sustainability. And by creating this certification, we're opening up a new market of housing to those who are green-minded, and as well as those who are lower income, who can't afford these $500 oil bills and electricity bills as well. And while we designed the certification to be more residential, it can be opened up to like municipalities, local buildings, and local businesses as well as bettering our city. So I'll bring Jared up to wrap it up.
So all of our projects can all go together in one cohesive area that we can start this discussion. But after listening to our presentation, what I want you all to understand is the initiatives for Salisbury is possible. As we've interviewed Mayor Ireton, the one thing I got from him was that we just need to make theory into practice. The conversation itself is the first step of how we're going to conduct this change, as we hope to have all of your support to plan environmental action. Lastly, I want the council members to understand this statement: being idealistic doesn't make your argument weak or invalid, it only sets a direction. Just because we are setting our standards out of many people's comfort zones doesn't give us the excuse not to go through with them. We have to actively be attentive to our surroundings in order to really see the possibility of this kind of change, because the world is heading into a different direction. A more just Salisbury where tree covers the entire city, green energy lights up the night sky, and people become actively involved in Salisbury's community, creating a cohesive living environment that we all deserve to live in. I hope you all can see what Salisbury can become and how cooperative efforts and green initiatives can help Salisbury to develop what truly means to be sustainable. Thank you for your time.
Well, I'll tell you what, first of all, thank you. Thanks to the four of you and your teammate who couldn't be here for investing this semester into these projects and thinking about improving the city of Salisbury. It's fantastic. We appreciate it. For me, I mean, I think there are interesting characteristics and specific questions I have about each of the proposals, but more importantly right now, I think what this does is highlights for me the potential relationship between the city and students at Salisbury University. And that's fantastic. If we were doing this in every policy area and had this kind of research constantly ongoing in every policy arena, I think that would just be even better for our city and for sort of the potential collective IQ of our city government. So thank you for that. I'm going to defer to council members for any questions they have.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. My true hope is that some of the four or all of the four of you will choose to remain in the area after you graduate, because we could use people like you.
Thank you. We have a very tight-knit group at Salisbury with our environmental department, and they're all more than willing to go out and be active.
Good.
And I think there are facets of our government that you might be involved in as well. I mean, I sit on the Planning and Zoning Board, and the tree canopy, you were preaching to the choir here. Every time a building goes up, I make sure that the trees are there. And it's an event that I think that you would enjoy it, and I think that we'd come away with something more. So come on down. Thank you.
I had the same thought about, okay, how many of you are staying to help us make these a reality? And then when Jake made the comment about exploring other policy areas and doing the same thing, I'm over here looking at Robbie like, yeah, we're gonna make that happen, right?
It's almost like there should be an institute for, I don't know, public affairs and civic engagement or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And that somebody at the university should be in charge of that. Oh, wait. We've got him right here. So I think that's a fantastic point. I mean, our relationship is, ought to be a lot tighter than it is. And this just highlights that. So hopefully, I think probably the best way to do this will be to communicate afterwards. So, I know some of you have my email address, and I think you've got the mayor's and Mr. Stevenson's email addresses, but maybe all council, we can get in on some questions and exchange some dialogue. All right? Well, thank you for being here. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of our conversations, including the next one, which is bed and breakfast fee schedule.
Jake, it's sunny and warm outside.
Yep, and I need to give you your flowers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Have a good night.
You'd have to be a real masochist.
It wasn't as hard as you thought it was going to be. Was it?
Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's easy. Good afternoon.
Shane's in a yes mood.
Good afternoon.
If you would, if you don't mind.
I just turned it off because
This ordinance is a follow-up to the bed and breakfast ordinance 17-04-120 that was created. And then in that ordinance, it was listed that the fee would be determined by separate ordinance, and this is the ordinance that accompanies that. We internally in NSCC, we determined what that fee would be. We broke it down by each step, and we determined that $60 would be reasonable for that permit fee. And, I'm sorry, Mark,
Yeah,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that the redefining or putting a definition in for bed and breakfast inn isn't even in the code yet. So, you see blanks there, and we might toy with those whereas clauses a little bit, but this is just to establish the amount of the fee. Donna was going to bring over the ordinance that was passed if you all wanted to look at it. It wasn't included in the packet, but if you need it for reference, it did require permits, and we need to charge people a fee if we're going to do that. So.
Yeah. I knew that.
Okay.
I think the only question that arises for me, and I think the fee is appropriate, I don't think it's unreasonable. The only question for me that arises is I'd like to get a better sense of the timeline, the traffic pattern. So let's say I want to open a bed and breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the right district. I have the right number of rooms. First things first, I know I need a special exception, right? So I have to go to Board of Zoning Appeals?
Yes,
Okay, so I have to go to BZA. Do I have to go to Historic District since it's in the Historic District as well?
for any signage,
Okay, for the signage?
anything exterior you would.
All right.
Exterior alteration.
And then the application process for the permit itself, will that go through you?
NSCC, yes.
Okay.
I can, at next work session, would this come back to work session? It looks like
I
it's.
doubt it unless there's a major,
At,
problem.
okay, at council, I can, or in between there, I can just email those steps.
Those steps, okay.
And
Like
I can-
in the correct order, I guess is what I'm wondering.
And there's an inspection list. I think I provided, I think somewhere along the way, there's some dialogue that you may have seen in an email.
Maybe so.
There's a list of inspection criteria
Okay,
that we
okay.
would be performing during that inspection.
Okay.
When the inspector goes out there.
And
So I
the
can email
The
you.
purpose of that is obviously just to make sure that they meet the criteria
Right.
set forth in the
In the
definition.
code, sure. That all makes sense. Yeah, my question, I guess, is more related to kind of what do you do first? Who do you go to first?
So if you were gonna open one, what would you do?
Right.
What's the steps
Yeah.
from A to Z?
Right, do I go in and apply for a permit with you, and then you send me to BZA, and then after that I go to
Yeah, I mean, my guess is it
I
would
got
work
it.
like this. That's just copies of the ordinance for everybody. But you would first have to apply for a permit because a permit is prerequisite to having it.
Got it.
Once you had filed your application for a permit, I think you could also file a request for a special exception at that point.
So,
Mr.
Can I
President.
just skip back, real quick, one thing? You said there was no definition of bed and breakfast?
that's where I was
No, it
going.
is.
Oh, yeah,
That's
okay.
why I asked that you.
Oh,
give it.
in the proposed.
If I look
but yeah.
online right now, it's not in there
Okay.
yet, so I knew that none of you could look at it, so I
Jack, you had
just.
something?
Yeah, this would be a perfect opportunity to try something we've talked about before, where once the initial, whoever gets the first, whoever's responsible for the first, make sure it goes to the second individual, so the person doesn't have to go traipsing all over the city to do it. This is a great opportunity, because this is not a complicated process. So if it works, if we can make it work on a simplified process, then maybe it could be applied to other areas. Sure.
In the same way we notify new purchasers of what they need to do with a single-family home, we could, when you apply for your permit, you can get a cookbook recipe.
Right.
A sheet of paper with, here are the steps you need to go through, and here
Yeah.
are the places you need to walk.
And I'm even suggesting that don't send them to the department, have the thing forwarded to the department with a timestamp.
Right, right. No, I agree. Once it's on our side of the firewall,
Then
you
it's,
know, then it's ours.
when it's done, it goes
Once,
back.
you know, on this side of government.
Yeah. Is that possible?
Because to the constituent, you know, once they're in the process, the expectation is going to be,
It's possible. The only concern I have is that the application is left with neighborhood services and code compliance, and then it needs to go to Mr. Lennox's office for Board of Zoning Appeals, and it makes its way over there, and that individual says, well, I understand what they're trying to accomplish, but I still need to talk to them to understand X, Y, and Z, so it prompts a telephone call to come into the office, and, I mean, I want to make this work, and I hear what you're saying, but there are going to be some challenges along the way as we try to have neighborhood services shepherd this from start to finish.
I think this is something you learn, but I think that what I would suggest, if that's where normally, I've attended a couple of the meetings, just at that point in time, tell the person that they have to show up at the meeting and schedule it.
Okay.
And then you avoid the
and I'm not
The
even
phone call.
suggesting that the point of entry should be the shepherd. I'm
No,
suggesting
I mean-
that there should be a shepherd.
Right.
And I think that's what Mr. Heath is saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whichever is the most convenient and easiest to do.
I understand the desired outcome, we'll try and make it work.
Great.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell, do you have something?
Well, it was about the definition,
definition.
same question, but, and the filling in the blanks here. You're gonna go back and do that, Mr. Tillman, for
Yes.
the ordinance.
Yeah, that's the plan. And maybe even I might change them up and simplify them a little bit, but that we just wanted to get the rate in front of you and get your blessing on that.
Okay.
Is this a one-time or annual fee?
This would be a one-time at the establishment, the time of establishment.
Okay.
That's a good question, though. I
And
mean,
it is a
should
good
there be an
question.
annual fee? Should there
Should
be
there-
an inspection once the permit is issued?
I thought when you all talked about this before, it was just gonna be a one-time thing.
Yeah,
That's my recollection, but I can't say.
That was my initial understanding, but if you feel that it should be done annually or,
Is there an annual inspection of, I know there is of other food service facilities from the health department. I mean, they'll be serving food. I assume the health department will be
Then we'll
involved.
Look at the kitchen
Right.
facilities and dining facilities.
Yeah, but that's not going to be.
But we
No, that's not comprehensive, but I'm just wondering
No, I know.
if there's, I'm wondering what sort of annual hoops there will be. And there's one. I'm just trying to figure out full
what are the
picture.
responsibilities we will have as far as monitoring. They will be small.
The health department for the kitchen, you have to have a licensed kitchen. And there's different, things like sprinkler system and all that. It's expensive to do that.
Give me one sec.
I don't think you're bound by all of those requirements when you're operating a bed and breakfast.
Are there state regulations that
It's,
because they're cut way down with what they they serve.
I
food,
don't
they-
profess to be an expert in that
For
area,
food,
maybe,
That falls under
Yeah,
the
we'd
health
have to look
department.
at state law there. I mean, my assumption was if they needed to comply, that was kind of their problem as far as their kitchen goes.
And
The
that'll
city
be-
doesn't really need to regulate that.
That'll be a county event.
Yeah.
But
Health
didn't we have a
department.
section in there about how often, I know we did, how often people could stay without any ongoing inspection or check, you know, and how many rooms they could use out of the house, and the
Well-
fact that the owner's living there?
Well,
No.
but there is the requirement to maintain a guest register and to preserve all records for no less than 3 years, and consent to making those records available immediately to the housing inspector upon request. So if there was an issue, I mean, there's a mechanism there. But I'm wondering more from
What would prompt?
a building standards, you know. I'm wondering if there are.
We have to call that expert up here.
Bill, you want to come up here? Yeah.
I'll relinquish my seat.
We can, here, no, you can stay. I mean, you know, maintaining number of rooms, you know, things like that, if there was construction that was done, if anything happened to reduce the number of rooms, or, you know, anything that would take it out of, and maybe the housing inspector is the right person to actually determine that. But I'm just thinking, you know, we want to make sure that the thing is well maintained. We want to make sure that it continues to meet all of the building code, and doesn't violate any of this section of the housing code as well. But I'm thinking that the only thing that would be like a reduction in the number of rooms, or a change in parking.
That was done that altered the place without a permit.
Yeah, then you could pull the permit, probably, right?
And if alterations need to be made, they're gonna have to go through
Yeah.
the city building department, so we can coordinate that. I
Yeah,
don't see that as a problem.
So I'm wondering if an annual inspection is needed, really. Sounds like it might be superfluous.
You might be better off to set up where if an inspection based on a complaint or an observation of the city at any time, that clearly we would have the right to inspect.
Right.
We get complaints about hotel rooms that are not clean. I would assume that in this case, if someone stayed that wasn't clean, we would get a complaint. And then that would prompt us to go say, hey, we got this complaint.
Could we add that language to this ordinance?
What for?
To allow for an
monetary
inspection, no, for an inspection upon, allow for an inspection upon a complaint or an observation by city inspector. You know, similar to the language that we added to the adult entertainment, but, you know, probably a reduced version of that.
Would we be putting a fee there for such an inspection? Or let's say there was a problem found, would you want a follow-up fee? Because if you had someone who was in
Well,
violation.
in these whereas clauses, the one on line 14 says establish a fee imposed for a permit to operate it.
Right.
Then the next one is establishes a fee for noncompliance or delinquency.
Right.
So
There you go.
seems like it's kind of alluding to where you're going, Jake.
Right,
Okay.
it does,
That
but
would be-
that's one reason that's blank is because I'm not sure we have done that yet, so.
No, I don't think we have, but we could do that.
Well, I don't see where a complaint for this would be any different than a complaint for any other property, because we wouldn't treat it, we get complaints about businesses that have issues.
Okay.
So it would be no different.
So it would be duplicative if we added that language here.
Correct.
Okay.
It already exists in the code.
It does,
There are no
no,
situations in which this
Sound
would
good?
be different than any other building.
no.
Okay.
There are no special,
Council comfortable with that?
yeah.
All right, good.
So we'll
Makes it
we'll
easier.
take out some of those whereas clauses.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah, we definitely don't need the fee for noncompliance or delinquency reference, since that's the entry point. Okay, anything else? Anything else from you all? Anything else from council? Council consensus to bring this forward to legislative session?
Please do.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Next item on our agenda is fire service agreement discussion. Chief Hoppus.
Good afternoon, Council.
Afternoon, welcome, sir.
just an update for council to be provided after a meeting that was held last Tuesday with the county. I'll present what I believe to be the deliverables from that meeting and really talk about what I think is a very successful interaction with the county as it relates to beginning anew discussions with the fire service agreement. After we sorely missed our leader, Council President Day, we recognize him in a very important role serving to protect our communities as well. So,
well, Chief, you know, I've read that all parties reported that the meeting was productive, so I don't think you missed me that much.
Well, it's the move forward that we have to focus on. Prior to meeting with the council, with the county, Council President Day provided us, Ms. Glanz and myself, with great direction, and we presented what we believe is a very strong city position as it relates to how we move the process of negotiating a new fire service agreement forward. I'd like to present to you what we moved forward and then discuss very briefly how it was received, and then we can entertain council questions. Is that okay, Mr. President?
Absolutely.
We felt like it was extremely important to establish what the overarching priorities and goal for negotiating a new fire service agreement should be, and we presented to the county the following. We believe that the first priority for this negotiation process should be and must be to provide the most efficient and effective emergency services to all citizens of Wycomico County. That was immediately accepted by everyone at the table, with the addition of the following three qualifiers that Mr. Strasburg had presented, and we accepted those qualifiers as well. And the qualifiers that Mr. Strasburg had given were that whatever the priority is that we provide that service in an equitable, affordable, and sustainable way. And we immediately agreed to that as well. So if I might reiterate, the first priority, our overarching program goal for us is to provide the most effective and efficient emergency services to all citizens of Wycomico County in an equitable, affordable, and sustainable way. And that was unanimous from our counterparts in the county. They accepted that, and we graciously accepted that as well, because we felt like we were beginning to lose focus on that most important part, which is the provision of public safety to our citizens, whether they be in Salisbury or the county. That's what's most important. I'm going to reserve the second thing that we had talked about for last, because I think that becomes the move forward position that we must discuss. The second thing we had discussed were various variables. We had called them variables. I believe now they become benchmarks for our process moving forward. They are the achievables that we hope to obtain as we enter into discussions, and there are 7 of them. The first one being is, how do we arrive at the valuation of our services? We believe, based on the calculations of your fire chief, we believe it to be a number. The county disagrees with our calculations and numbers, so how do we arrive at the best, most equitable, and independent evaluation of services? We agreed, Mr. Strasburg and Mr. Culver presented what they thought was an important plan, and that was to have an independent agency come in and do the evaluation, which takes both agencies out of the calculation of those and really put a cost accounting and valuation on the provision of public safety services by our department, and I would submit to you that it could be easily mimicked for the rest of the county departments. We thought that that was a very good idea and sustained that. The second deliverable would be, how do we apportion the value, whatever that value is in the cost accounting that will be conducted and concluded. What is the appropriate apportionment of that value? Likewise, bullet number 3, or deliverable number 3, is similar to it, but and related to it, and that is, how much should the county be responsible for as it relates to the apportionment of our services? So bullets 1, 2, and 3 all talk about the valuation of services and the cost for services and how much each party should be responsible for. The third or the fourth bullet is about geography. are our fire service districts appropriately outlined today? That's an evaluation that we believe is very important as well. The county would say that maybe they could reduce the Salisbury's fire district and save themselves some money. We believe that we provide the most equitable and efficient services to our citizens because of the geography and location of our stations and because of the infrastructure that we already have in place. We believe that very strongly. There may be a difference of opinion, thus the opportunity for us to discuss what the most effective and efficient delivery of services is, and geography has to play into that discussion. So we'll talk about that moving forward. The fifth benchmark or milestone would be what sources or what source or sources should be used for the funding. Whatever the cost evaluation comes up with, how do we pay for it? Now, the city will say that that's probably a discussion that the county must drive, but we'll have to determine how we fit into that as a city into those discussions. But the sources of funding we felt like was a really important thing to talk about. The sixth thing was what the implementation phase looks like. How long should it take for us to negotiate a new fire service agreement and have one ready to be implemented at a specific date? We believe we at least unofficially arrived at that number based on our conversations, but that's a discussion, that's a benchmark we'll have to achieve as well. And then the final benchmark would be a determination of how long or what the term of a new fire service agreement is. Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it in perpetuity? We don't know, but that's a discussion point. Those 7 benchmarks or variables were presented. We presented those, and our counterparts on the other side of the table unanimously accepted and agreed to each one of those as our basically our charter document for our project moving forward. We agreed that they are the benchmarks, and that we all agreed that that was how we should move it forward. So questions on the variables before I get to my final part?
And can I just add?
You can. Since it's your list, you can.
The reason that I used the term variables, in identifying those is because, I recognize that our perspective on each of those benchmarks is different than the county's.
Sure.
So we're each seeing 2 different benchmarks of, or desirable outcomes on each of those 7. So I see them as continuums,
yeah.
Seven different continuums, yeah. And we may be at far ends of each variable today, but I agree that, we want to, we want to find common ground on all 7, and within there is a benchmark that is the appropriate objective for the city and the county.
And we presented it just in that capacity, but in the overarching, in the grand scheme of things, there has to be a target, and the target, I believe, are those 7 things. So right. they create of themselves are benchmarks. We, by virtue of us being on opposite sides of the table, we know that we're in different starting points. It's the ending point that the benchmark creates for us. Would you agree?
Agree.
Okay. Questions on the variables or the benchmarks? The final thing that was and remains to this day to be the thing that we need to desperately discuss is the urgency of our current situation. Given the edict of the nuclear option, which it has been unfortunately dubbed, probably by me. I probably started it, and I regret having done that. I think it's a poor use of the words, but it is what it is, the lexicon that we're currently using at this point. So the urgency from backing away from nuclear option, from the other side of the table, the urgency is in that they have to make contingency plans to protect the fire district that we currently protect if in fact we will employ the nuclear option. Mr. Culver had requested as part of the outcomes of our meeting that the mayor would provide him answer the question whether or not he would be willing to rescind the nuclear option while we move forward in negotiating in good faith. The mayor did that. It's my understanding that Mr. Culver doesn't like the language in the way the mayor did it, and therefore I think I don't know this for sure, but based on general conversations, it still is the issue at hand for us that we need to address probably before the 3-week meeting time comes, but that's what I have to present to the council. That is, I will say this, in the 8 years or 7 years that we've been attempting to negotiate a new fire service agreement, it is absolutely the most productive meeting that we have had to date. I truly believe the county is, I have to believe, because I believe they're men of their word, that they want to negotiate a new fire service agreement. I believe they have their hearts in the right place. We just have to begin in good faith. I also agree with the mayor that one meeting does not a fire service agreement make. We have a long way to go, but it's important for us to keep making progress. I think I can speak for Ms. Glanz that the outcome of the meeting was positive, productive, and we had a move forward position that we have heretofore not had in previous attempts to discuss the fire service agreement. I was very, very pleased with the outcome. I'll make an end of my words by saying that I hope the council can continue to support the efforts for us to move this forward. I think the most urgent matter for us is to deal with the perception of the nuclear option from the county and help them be more comfortable with that, because my fear is that it will derail the move forward in negotiating process if we don't. It's the end of my words, and I will entertain council's comments, questions, or counsel for your fire chief.
Chief, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Glanz, for the two of you handling this so well. We could discuss this ad nauseum here, but I want to get to the salient point, the question, and I think it's kind of summed up in the press release that the county executive put out a moment ago before we walked into this meeting. He references the letter dated April 30th, 2015 by the mayor, in which the mayor wrote, "I am writing to let you know that at this point in time, I'm removing the nuclear option of enforcing a mandate for fire trucks and ambulances to not leave the city limits. I am, however, reserving the right to employ this option again, whether there is a date attached to it or not. In addition, I would like to be supplied with a list of the next 6 meeting dates and a list of possible auditors that will be revising the supplied data. Memo Derricker has offered to have his Beacon group review the data and give us a non-biased analysis." I think that everything that the mayor wrote in his letter that Mr. Culver quotes is well within the mayor's right to assert.
I agree.
That being said, the threat that the other side has is essentially this. Executive Culver stated, "I cannot in good conscience," this is a quote, "I cannot in good conscience allow such a threat to public safety stand. I am committed to continue earnest discussions with regard to a new fire service agreement. However, I will not do so under a threat of cessation of services by the city's mayor." And I think what that means is that, and correct me if I'm wrong if this wasn't stated, but I think what that means is the threat is that based on what the county knows of their charter, they will continue to cease providing any funding whatsoever to the city. And that's what's been communicated to me. So we're each pointing guns at each other right now, and I think we can help lower them both. And I think we can do that by council weighing in. And I believe that it would be productive for council to weigh in and say that at this time, council would not entertain a discussion of the nuclear option, which is in line with what the mayor says, that I'm writing to let you know that at this point in time, I'm removing the nuclear option of enforcing a mandate. Again, it's well within the mayor's right to say, I'm keeping the right to employ the option again. And
it's certainly implied.
But I think to have a productive conversation, we have to say, well, yes, we have a gun, but we're putting it down for the moment.
They need to put their gun down as well.
And I think they will if we put ours down. So that's what I think council needs to consider today. That's my opinion. But I'll be quiet for a while.
I spoke with Mr. Culver this afternoon prior to that press release going out, and likewise, still negotiating. I had said exactly what you said, is that at some point in time, whether it was written in the mayor's letter or not is not really important. They're just words on a page. It's implied that the city reserves the right to provide services the way it sees fit. We have the right to do that. It's implied. But I'm pointing my gun at you, you're pointing your gun at me, and who's going to blink first? In this case, the county believes they have a very strong negotiating position. I would disagree on the strength of their negotiating position, but we haven't had that discussion yet. We need to get to the table to have that discussion. But at some future time, we will have to have that very open dialogue with, without the threats of nuclear options and actions. And as one of my coworkers, who may or may not be in the room, I won't give him or her credit for it, said the nuclear fallout from this rains down on everyone. Matters not whether you're in the county or the city. The nuclear fallout hits everybody. And I thought those were very true words from him, or her, as the case may be. But it's important that we really focus on what's the most important thing, which is the first thing we discussed: the most effective and efficient service of provision of emergency services to our citizens.
Right.
And I just want to know to do that, and that's kind of where I'm standing.
And those are great caveats that the county added. I mean, it's got to be affordable and sustainable and equitable. And right now, it is neither equitable to the city or affordable to the city. And we don't want to create a situation where it's inequitable or unaffordable to the county. Right. So, thoughts from council members?
My first thought is no successful negotiation has ever been won or lost in the media. We need to get to the table, and we need to just sit down and discuss what the issues are. The outline is tremendous, and I think that we should support that. Personally, I would have a very difficult time supporting the quote unquote nuclear option.
That's going to haunt me for a while.
I'll look for another word.
I'm trying to find one too.
That option is not on my plate at all, period.
It's never been on mine.
I think it would be useful for council to communicate that in a letter.
I'll sign it.
Okay. Yep.
I'll take the lead on that.
The sooner the better.
Okay. Thank you.
There's certain bells that can't be unrung once they're.
No, I realize that. And I think it just reinforces what is probably the most, the two statements that I think I keep repeating in my head and I think are most important to where we are today versus where we were a few weeks ago are these. You know, one, the quote, I am removing the nuclear option of enforcing a mandate for fire trucks and ambulances to not leave city limits. That was an important statement that the mayor wrote in his letter.
Great.
And the second was county executives at the press conference, which was the mayor's right and I'm going to fix it. So let's hold everyone to their word and let's get it corrected.
And at every opportunity during the first meeting, that message from the county never wavered.
That's fantastic. And I think most people out in the world.
Would you agree, Ms. Lance? It never wavered. It was important for us to focus on that. And at some point in a negotiation process, I agree with Mr. Heath, there's got to be some trust built. There's got to be some I'm gonna let my guard down and hope that you will do the same, and we will move forward in good faith. And I felt that there was good faith coming from the other side of the table. I believe they felt that our good faith is employed as well.
And I think there are people in this county, and that are paying attention to this that would be surprised to learn that. But I think it speaks volumes of the people in that room, both city and county, that everyone stuck to that commitment. That look, we're going to fix this. It's not right, and we're going to fix it.
I can just tell you, I was very excited coming away from the meeting with the progress that we made. This is the disclaimer. Your fire chief is always an optimistic person. I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I am optimistic by nature. I also have the ability to fall farther than everybody else because of that optimism, and I understand that. But I lead my life in an optimistic way, trusting that people will do what they say they're going to do, because my commitment in my life, my character and integrity is to do what I say I'm going to do. And I try not to waver from that, and that's really what we have to have coming into the table.
I wouldn't live life any other way.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. So with that, is there consensus to sign on to a letter that says we also support the mayor's removal of the nuclear option, and we're not interested in entertaining it at this time?
And thank you both for going to the table for this.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Glanz led the charge. She did a great job.
Excellent. Good deal. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Next item on our agenda is flood insurance rate maps. Mr. Holland. Now, this is also a negotiation with the federal government, right? We get to negotiate.
Yeah, right.
This is their nuclear option.
Don't use that term.
The negotiation ended when they put it in the mail.
We use that in every.
That negotiation ended when they put it in the mail.
Okay, back in February of this year, the city was formally notified by FEMA that the flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps had been completed and will go into effect in August 17th of this year. This was a 6-year process. Started back in August 2009. In fact, the regulations that you have, they wrote the it's like an ordinance, and they had council members on there that aren't even council women anymore, council women. So, first of all, this is the actual flood study and flood insurance maps. We got the science that goes into this flood insurance study is so far outside of my limited knowledge of flood mapping or what have you. Department of Public Works and their engineers, they're the ones that got me through this. With Dale Pusey, that's how far this goes back, he's retired now from the city, and then Rick Baldwin picked up from him. And filing the appeals for the city where they found mistakes in these maps, the community meetings explaining a lot of the technical terms in here that I don't have a whole lot of understanding for. What I am, I'm the permitter and I'm the regulator. One of the most recent projects is the River's Edge, which had to follow these standards. But I want to say a big thank you to Public Works and their engineers who helped me get through this. It was very technical and science related. Anyway, this flood hazard mapping is an important part of the National Flood Insurance Program, which the city is a member of, and to continue its membership with the National Flood Insurance Program, the city is required to adopt this flood insurance study and flood rate maps by August the 17th. And I'm required by them to have a copy of the ordinance and the regulations to them by August the 3rd.
Is it a cut and paste job, or do you have a lot of work to do?
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay.
When you read through this, you see the city of Salisbury or Salisbury City Council or building official, that's the only thing I filled in. And I do have an ordinance that Pete from Mark's office wrote for me. I got the copy. This is the ordinance that adopts the code. Also, this is a copy of the final product from this. This is an elevation certificate that comes from this, certifying that a building meets FEMA requirements.
So that is issued to every building within the floodplain?
That's correct.
Okay.
And every 5 to 7 years, the Maryland Department of Environment, they do a community assistance meeting with the city to ensure that we are following their regulations, and that's part of us being members of the city being a member of the National Flood Insurance Program. We got a clean bill of health. They were here. This was back in 2014. Again, one thing with these new flood insurance rate maps, there are people that are currently not in some of these floodplains that are going to find themselves.
Yeah, that's my real question. Do we have identified geographic areas that are now included that were not previously? Do we have maps yet?
Yeah, we've got the maps. The way they'll find out is probably through their mortgage companies. And there are ways for people to appeal these determinations, either through a letter of map change or through a letter of a map amendment, which you go through FEMA to get. I went through one for my property years ago, and I got it, because I disagreed with it.
So even after we've adopted it, they can appeal
Yes,
their
yeah,
particular
they can,
property?
I was on their site today, on FEMA's website, that, you know, one of the click-ons, how do I do a letter of map change? How do I do a letter of map amendments? At least they have on there how you can go about doing this. And then there's going to be properties that come out of the floodplains.
Okay, how does that work?
That's
Oh, you mean through the appeals process?
Through the mapping.
Yeah.
And
So,
the flood insurance study, there's properties that will be current properties that are currently in a floodplain that's going to be coming out of the floodplain now.
so does the map in fact change?
Oh, yeah.
So does the map then follow property lines?
Not
No, it
always.
doesn't follow.
No. I mean, but you see what I'm saying? Like when something is removed,
Right.
is there a donut hole around the property lines? Or is it just sort of an asterisk that, you know, technically they're not paying, you know, they're not considered to be in the flood insurance or the floodplain and they're just removed and don't have to pay?
My understanding is they're removed.
Okay, but the map doesn't, you know, the map doesn't remove the property at the property line.
No.
All right.
So it might be a sector.
Part of it in.
It might be, you know, like 4 or 5 properties.
They do kind of a reevaluation? So, okay, so do you know what areas, if any, are sort of major additions? You know, what parts of the city are gonna see significant changes?
Possibly up 13 around where the dam
One
is.
backed up by Pep Boys.
That's correct. So some of those properties that go back into Dover Street and some of those other streets in there may be affected.
Okay,
That's one area I know of.
Even though I think that's probably the only time that that's ever flooded that I can recall, and it was a man-made issue.
right,
Now it's in a flood zone.
that's a good point.
I see some appeals.
And, you know, they're also changing from the National Geodetic Vertical Datum from 1925 to the North America Vertical Datum to 1988.
It's about time.
Yeah. And what that is, naturally, the 88 is the most recent. It's all done through satellite and more current technology than 1929.
Okay.
You think?
Would it be
Just to
this
let you know.
technology that took places that were previously in the floodplain out of the floodplain? So that there was an assumption previous to this, that they were in the floodplain? And that was based upon
Maps.
looks like, or
Well, yeah, and the
loose
maps,
science?
and the maps. Well, the flood insurance study from back then,
Mhm.
yeah, which then creates the maps.
Okay. So they have better ways of assessing this at this point?
Yes.
Great. Well, and
Well,
where is the
yeah.
information found when someone wants to know if his or her house?
FEMA.gov, how to create a ferment.
Say again, please.
How to create a ferment. That's the link.
Okay.
Ferment, F-I-R-M-E-T, ferment.
Thank
And you click on that, and they can just put their street address, city, and everything, and click, and it should pull your property up. It should let you know if you're in or
Great.
out.
Excellent.
Is that available now, or they have
No,
to
that's-
wait till
that's
after
available.
we
No, that's-
do the?
that should
The
be available now.
updated is available now?
It should be.
.gov.
FEMA.gov. And you're gonna see all these, icons or whatever, links, of how to create a ferment. F-I-R-M-E-T.
We might want to
Or
put
you can
down the
just Google
website.
ferment.
Yeah, is that something that we could put on the city website? You know, some information about,
Sure.
you know, maybe on your section? I think that'd be really useful.
That was back in August of last year where
Two T's.
they did their community meeting with
Yeah,
representatives from FEMA Region 3, and all the, big wheels from Baltimore were here. And it was not just for the city of Salisbury, it was for Wycomico County. I think 18 people showed up. I was there.
Really?
And they could go in there with their property, they could tell them if they were in, if they were out, and if they were close to a flood designated area, would their property be affected by these new maps? And I think it was like 18 or 19 people showed up.
No, there were some significant issues and a lot of discussion around the maps, but also
the rates associated with them. I see Ms.
Well-
Rain has come in the room. She might be able to answer that part, but I'm
These
just trying to
regula-
figure out the connection.
These regulations naturally are more stringent than our current ones. The required elevations are increased with it's called a 2-foot freeboard, where we're currently a 1-foot freeboard above the flood protection elevation. And by increasing the lowest level, no, the highest level of the lowest floor should decrease rates. Should decrease rates. If you're higher, if you have a higher elevation than what's now currently required, it, should help decrease rates.
But if you have a pre-existing building that was built on the previous requirements, and now it's changed from 1 foot to 2 foot, your rates could skyrocket. Or you could lift your house.
Your rates could go up, yes, and they probably will.
I wish I knew of examples of communities that have been able to address this from a policy perspective.
This
but
is going all over, this is statewide.
Oh, yeah,
This is-
yeah.
This is countrywide.
The only example I can think of was an infrastructural improvement that changed the way that the flood maps were plotted, which was Frederick. When they got federal money, flood mitigation dollars from FEMA, they built the giant culverts under the park, the creek, yeah, and then put let the creek flow back on top of that, and that allowed them to remove their downtown from the flood maps, and people don't have to get flood insurance. However, that's a huge infrastructural project. Saves the private property owner a bunch of money, but it costs a significant amount of investment. I realize that's a long-term conversation, but something we should probably think about, given that we have some geographic similarities in the long term. In the short term, we just kind of have to swallow this one from Uncle Sam.
Oh, I guess one question I have is about city properties and the effect on our insurance premiums as a result of this. Because I know there were a lot of questions at the zoo, and we've been waiting for corrections to the maps that are however many years old, and maybe Amanda could help with that, whether we've, how we fared through that. Should I? Yeah, please.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, we benefited the zoo based on these map changes. We had made a request, and again, this dates back to Dale Pusey, to eliminate the floodway designation through the zoo. Most of the zoo's already in the 100-year floodplain, but then along the creek there's a floodway, and it constrains us from being able to really do any new buildings there, and it was really kind of hurting us with the visitor center and locking us into what we could do there. So that is removed as part of these new maps. So that's the biggest benefit that we have. Other city properties, I'm not sure. I could check with Rick tomorrow to see if we've looked at them individually, but I know we were fortunate at the zoo to have that corrected. And as Bill noted, some of the changes to the 100-year floodplain even are areas like, take the zoo for example. If you've been there, the gift shop is sort of up on a little bit of a hill, but that was still in the 100-year floodplain, because when the maps were done before, they weren't necessarily done using elevations and contour lines and that type of thing. It was so many feet, proximity to the water, so many feet off the floodway. So when you actually map it on a base map, it looks ridiculous. You have this elevation 10 feet higher than a nearby road, and it's still in the floodplain. So things like that have been corrected throughout.
Okay. Other questions? Comments?
I would recommend everybody visit the site and see where you are and talk to your insurance company.
Yeah, Bill, and I would just ask that we do find a way to get this on the city website if we can, or get that link to the link.
Yeah, definitely.
FEMA
Because I'm looking at the map now, and it's pretty extensive.
Put in msc.fema.gov.
So put what?
I'm sorry, yeah, msc .fema.gov, and that takes you to the flood map center, service center. That's where you can put in your address.
What was that?
MSC.
I got FEMA flood map center right
Mary Sam Charlie.
FEMA.
.fema.gov. So this will go into effect in August, so I would assume that most insurance companies would start doing the reevals at renewal. I'm just thinking from a budgetary perspective, how we, I guess we probably, there's no time to make that adjustment for this year, but we may see no change, or may see a significant change.
Yeah, I don't know how significant that would be for us.
Well, I'm thinking of like the yard, and I mean, all that's right on the river. Gotta be the floodplain.
I'm sorry. Parking lots.
And yeah, our
Yeah.
parking
Our
lots.
parking lots don't have a lot to lose,
There's
but
nothing.
where we have buildings and equipment and things like that, they may look at
Right.
their insurance rates.
I've never seen it, but.
Well.
There's buildings at the yard
Roosevelt Street.
that were, I think, constructed probably back around 1998, at back of the Delaware Avenue. They are built to our current standards.
Oh, good.
All right.
Current standards being what's the same as what's in here?
The 84 flood insurance rate maps. Those are the current maps we have right now.
Right, but is this a higher standard now?
Yes.
So you still could still see, okay. Thank you.
Well, I mean, a lot to consider in terms of the impacts in the future, but in terms of the ordinance adopting the current rate maps, you know, I think our hands are tied. So with that, council consensus to move this to legislative session?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Mind if I stay?
No, you can stay.
Not at all.
Only if you have good news.
Always good to see you.
Bill, you can stay too if you want. No, you don't.
You don't want to, trust me. Run while you can.
Treatment
Go.
plant, you probably don't want to.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah. Next item is the MWQFA loan. Is the first piece of this. Okay.
Okay, we're going to talk about the loans and the grants for the treatment plant tonight, starting with the loan. As you know, at your last legislative session, you passed the ordinance that allowed the city to issue the general obligation bonds for an amount not to exceed $38 million. And it was done that way because we were starting that process before bids were opened. So since we've now actually opened bids and we have a pretty decent handle on what our costs should be, this is a resolution to actually issue the two different bonds for the loan. And there's two, because one is the base loan, which is 0% interest, and the other is the principal forgiveness loan. And so the actual amounts that we're looking at are $34,545,000 for the base loan and $1.5 million for the principal forgiveness loan. And again, these numbers, the loans and the grants that we'll talk about later, include all of the construction. It includes eligible portions of the design and all the construction services, as well as, you know, construction management and inspection. All these numbers that we're looking at include 5% for contingency. So that will be hopefully covering any change orders that we might have that we'll talk about a little bit later tonight too. But that's already built into this loan number, is 5% of contingency. So if we don't use that, we're not going to take that amount of the loan. You know, we only are going to take what we spend. It also includes, right off the top, 3% for administrative. We're allowed to get 3% of the grants and the loans for administrative fees. So that is the total loan amount, again, is $36,045,000. Those are the two breakdowns. What you have attached to that is a significant amount of documentation as far as the loan agreements. There are, like I said, the two separate bonds that are issued, and all of those agreements are attached to the resolution.
The principal forgiveness loan, the $1.5 million, help me understand how that fits in as a piece of this, and why that's not rolled into one loan package.
It has to be issued as a separate bond just because the payback is different. In the resolution, or they show the schedule of how we're gonna pay it back, and so of course that's not a part of it. And that's really the only difference. I mean, it's under the same loan agreement and everything else, it's just there is no principal payback, so that's why it's just shown as a separate pot of money. Why it's not a grant, I'm not sure. I think just because it's practically like a grant, but it's still a loan, and I think just so that it didn't confuse their BNR and ENR grant amounts is the only reason I know why that's completely separate like this.
Okay.
Amanda, a question. As I read this, it's the 34,545 is really like a line of credit then, where you draw upon it when you need it.
Yes, and we'll need probably almost all of it. The contingency, that 5% is for the loan about almost 1.5 million. So hopefully we won't need that, but the rest of it, yes, it's pretty much
But the
like a line
timing
of
will be
credit.
as you draw from it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that drawdown, or the payback schedule that you see in here is still an estimate. And
Gotcha.
it'll be revised based on what we actually use
Right,
for the
when
loan.
good.
We do have that agreement where the first 8 years can be a payback of a principal of $150,000, as you see. So that won't change. That'll be the same. It's just the future years would get adjusted.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I think at some point in this process, it's worth sharing that I've talked to a few people who have gotten packages from the state as well recently, Elkton, Annapolis, Frederick.
Okay.
And talking to them, we have a significantly higher percentage of funding in the grant than any of them.
We have a great package right now.
So I mean, let's give you the credit for that, because that's fantastic. And you know, I was really surprised to hear, and they were surprised when I told them which I was happy to share.
Not in a good way.
They were surprised to hear that the balance was tipped, you know, that much further toward grants in our case. But I think it speaks volumes for our team. So I'm happy and excited for the long-term debt obligation. So
I think
thank
it's
you.
our best
and
case
congratulations.
scenario. Yeah, thanks.
Still a lot of money.
It is, yes it is.
Other questions? On the loan?
Thank you.
All right. Council consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And on to the grants?
Okay, so the grant piece of it. Again, we're talking about this now because we've opened bids, we have an idea where we're going. Our last major hurdle for this process is that the funding package has to get approved at the May 13th Board of Public Works meeting for the state. And then that's when really our funding becomes final. So I had included the tentative action agenda for the Board of Public Works in your package. And just so there's no confusion, I wanted to flip to the last page of that action agenda where it totals $65 million. And I wanted to just mention a couple of things to be clear. Some of the previously approved grants, like the ones from January of 2013, were for the plant drain pump station, which is a project that we already constructed at the treatment plant. It was part of the corrective action plan, and it is built and in service. So they're still, they're reflecting those grants here in this schedule because they gave us that money. It is all part of this corrective action plan and upgrade. There's also a couple that were previously approved in July of 13. Those were for design. And then the new grants that we're getting are correcting those amounts and giving us additional money. The design and the construction grant amounts are all based on your actual construction contract amount. So that's never final until you open bids. So that's why those get adjusted. We ran into a little bit of a hiccup last week with this draft agenda from the Board of Public Works in that unfortunately the BNR and ENR amounts got reversed. And it's sort of easy to happen. And again, I'll say, first off, MDE has been fantastic throughout this whole process, and they rushed this through per our request to try to keep us on schedule. Bay restoration funds are essentially the enhanced nutrient removal grants. The Bay Restoration Fund is ENR, but you can see the coding is a BRNR grant, and I think that's where the confusion lied. The biological nutrient removal grants, of course, are BNR grants, but they have an NR coding. So I think it just got a little bit confused along the way. But that impacts the way I had it written in our ordinance. So, I'm sorry, in the resolution to accept the grants. So I'm going to correct that before it goes to legislative session. This all just became apparent late in the week last week. So I'm going to tweak those numbers and change lines 34 and 35 in the resolution to actually just accept all BNR and ENR grants with a total amount.
And that won't matter as far as what we can do with each of them,
No.
it's the same?
So the way MDE has agreed to correct this is the Board of Public Works has a very long agenda, and they missed a meeting in the end of April because of all the happenings in Baltimore. So for them to change what goes before them on May 13th, they probably would have pulled it and we would have lost that meeting. So they are going to pass this as is and then amend it later. And that's fine with us. I mean, honestly, this wouldn't have become even a problem until near the end of the project where I was running out of BNR funding and had way too much ENR funding. So I'm fine with that approach. I have no problem with that. They've been very apologetic, but honestly, it's no problem.
Okay.
It's just, it'll be a paperwork change later on.
Okay.
So overall, the total amount of grant funding for this project in total is about $25.8 million. What we're looking to pass with this resolution is everything above and beyond what we've addressed before, the new grants, which the corrected new grant number that you'll see is $24.7 million. And I'll put that in the resolution.
Okay.
Again, the Bay Restoration Funds are funding about 18.2% of our total project. Biologic nutrient removal funds are funding about 23.49%. So our total project is 41.69% grant eligible, which, as you said, is a very high percentage. And just so you know, how we got there is basically we have line item by line item, everything that was bid, from the headworks to the clarifiers to the filters. We negotiated eligibility for each line item. So that overall eligibility then applies to everything else. Once you get all the specific items worked out, and you take the prorated amount, you take that 41.69%, you apply that to just the general things like yard piping, to the engineering design, to contingency, and that type of thing. So, so it is a good amount. It's what we had envisioned back when the consent order was signed. This is all right in line with that. So this is, once they approve everything on May 13th, we'll be back May 26th here for legislative meeting. Hopefully this will be just a formality and easy then. I have talked to Keith Cordry about all this and the slight mix-up. We're setting up our accounts with the correct amounts. You know, he doesn't want to set them up one way and then have to change them later, and
Okay.
I agree
So
with that.
internally, we're setting them
Internally,
up
we're going to set them
correctly.
up the way they're going to be.
Sure.
So we're all clear with that.
Okay.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. So are there questions on the grants or the grant? All right. Council consensus to move that forward to legislative session? Okay. The third item is the request to temporarily increase change order limits for the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. So this item, I attached Resolution 1360, which was passed before the last upgrade. And procurement made me aware of this and said we may want to consider it. And once I looked into it, I'm really glad they did let me know. You know, our change order procedures right now is if a change order is $5,000 or less, it's handled internally through Jennifer Miller and Keith Cordry and Mike Moltz. And then once it's over $5,000, it comes before council, which is fine, but it is time consuming. So part of the challenge on a project like this, where we are under a consent order to have our start up by December 31st, 2017, is we don't want to be held up with each change order. I have no problem and absolutely see the value in coming before council with each change order, but this allows us to have a faster approval process in the meantime so that we're not stopping work and facing a shutdown. So I looked back at the last upgrade to see if this was effective and if this was used. And essentially, what we're recommending is the same thing they did. There would be a 3-tiered authority. So the tier 1 change orders would be $50,000 or less, and they would essentially follow the same procedure that a $5,000 change order follows now. We would recommend it, procurement would review it, and it would go through, Jennifer, Keith Cordry, Mike Moles, the department head level. If a change order is a tier 2 between $50,000 and $100,000, you would additionally need the mayor's signature. If it's a tier 3, it would be between $100,000 and $150,000, and it would need the mayor's signature and one council member that's designated as our treatment plant guru, who's going to be up to date on all change order issues.
Not it.
Not it.
So anything over 150 would still come to.
And everything over 150 would still go through normal channels. Now, all these other change orders would still come before you at the next legislative session, but essentially it would be for your confirmation on what's been approved. So you will still see all of the change orders. However, if it's less than $150,000, it should be handled a little bit speedier. For the last upgrade, which occurred in 2006, they had a total of 27 change orders, of which only 3 were greater than $150,000. So the vast majority fell within this framework. They had 11 of them that were less than $50,000. Now, I hope to be nowhere near 27 change orders, but there are going to be unforeseen things. We're dealing with a lot of pipes in the ground.
On that contract, do you know how many, or do you know what the total amount that those change orders resulted in?
I didn't bring that with me, but I can get that for you, because I looked them all up and you know, kind of looked at what they were for.
Sure.
So sure, I can certainly get that.
I can guess, except for those 3 bigger change orders, you know.
I can get that for you.
I wonder if email it to us all.
I'm just wondering what that, you know, what that's costing, you know, what that costs us in that process. And again, as you said, we're hoping that it's not 27 change orders.
Yeah, I had gone through and listed them all, so I'll give you a breakdown of what they each cost.
I can tell you this, since I was there, we never had explanations of what had to happen. Like you're saying, that you went through line item to get the funds. Nothing was explained to us like this. It's just that we were going to get a new plant, and that was it. It was nothing technical advice. I don't think any of us was given. You know, so I think this is excellent.
Okay, good.
I wonder if we might handle it similar to the emergency repairs, that it's done and handled in this manner, and an email is sent to us then.
Sure.
Rather than having to come to a council meeting and unless you need some, well, with this, you wouldn't need a formal approval from us, so it would just.
And actually, I do think, line 53, the city council shall be informed in writing on the change order and justification within 2 business days. Yeah. And then we'll come back. So we will notify you.
Just very similar to the emergency repair.
And I do want to note that Jennifer Miller, procurement, has reviewed this language, and she reviewed the previous one. What we added based on her review was lines 41 and 42, just to be clear that everything's initiated by Public Works and submitted to procurement for review and processing, which is certainly
public meeting requirement, though.
Yes, and it does have the public meeting, and that's fine. I mean, it can always still be on the award of bids, but
Good to know about it.
Okay. And time is self-limiting, so we're good here.
Yes.
Amanda, the only question I had in reviewing it was, if we bring it before council, as is indicated in that paragraph 6, what happens if they say no? Because that's not made clear in this, and I think, what do you do in that circumstance?
That is a good question.
Well,
it just says that they must be placed on the agenda.
Yeah, I think if we
issue for ratification. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And this assumes that you will ratify everything, but it's possible that you may not.
Well, yeah.
Maybe we just take that.
Maybe it's the ones that we have to sign off on.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what we're saying by adopting this is that we're delegating, you know, that authority from $150,000 and below, so the decision will have been made. So we would have to be comfortable with that delegation today.
How many civil engineers do we have here?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rest my case.
Exactly. And a $65 million project, $150,000 change order.
I mean, if you're accepting them, maybe you don't need them ratified, is that, I mean.
Maybe ratification is just the wrong word.
Okay,
I would change the word ratification
or
to
public
notification, public discussion.
Discussion?
Sure.
There you go.
Well, that presumes then that we can't put it on the consent agenda.
Or could we say
Public
for
notification.
public reading, public information?
Yeah, let the public know what's.
Disclosure.
And
disclosure.
and can we, in number 7, can we separate the two? In number 7, can we separate the two? The, anything less than 150 for information or for public notice, and anything over 150 for ratification.
When anything over is pretty much just gonna follow the old process.
Yeah, I just
So
want to
you
be
don't-
clear
you don't need
that
this.
we're only, that number 7 is really only referencing the things that we have already made a decision on.
Okay, certainly.
So what language are you suggesting there for that?
So all change orders shall be placed on.
In
so-
paragraph
All change
6.
orders
is-
less
All change orders less than $150,000 shall be placed on the agenda of the next legislative city council meeting after the change order was issued for public information.
Okay.
And if people are really interested in what we're doing, they'll listen to it at the next meeting.
And then we'll
And
also
then
say all
paragraph.
change orders greater than shall be placed on for ratification, the full sentence.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, sure,
Too easy.
good,
All right,
Thank
council consensus to move that forward?
Yes.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Next item is Ben's Red Swings.
Next up, Amanda.
Well, what's that? I know.
Next up is Amanda.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's the Amanda Pollock Show.
playing the role of Mike Moltz. Some of the folks from Benjamin Swings were gonna come, but probably in an hour, so let's go ahead and hit it. As you know, we've been.
Oh, gosh, we're
We are-
Mr. Drew and Mr. Eccleston gonna come?
Yes, but that doesn't mean you wanna.
We could always have our closed session, and
Yeah.
we should probably do that.
Okay,
Yeah, if he's
Yeah.
coming in specifically.
We're probably going to need an hour or slightly less.
So much for getting
What do you
up
think,
early,
Tom?
Amanda.
Hour, slightly less?
For closed session?
An hour?
You had to wait for
an hour.
Is that okay?
So maybe I should
hate
put a
keeping
sign on
you
the
around.
door so they know to wait though, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's up to you, whatever.
I hate keeping you around.
Can you call her? And tell her we're done?
Him,
I could,
them.
I mean, I could call Matt and, do you want me to give our side of it and then you can decide if you want to have them come in or not?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? I would like us to entertain them. I hate the thought of just keeping you here for that. So why don't we do this? Why don't we get your presentation? We're going to go into closed session. They're anticipating us seeing them 7:15. Perfect. Let's leave a note on the door that we're in closed session, and we'll see Mr. Drew and Mr. Eccleston when they get here.
That's good.
At 7:15. So.
Okay, great,
with that.
great, thanks. Well, as you know, we've been working with the Layton family, as well as Mr. Drew and Mr. Eccleston, to develop the concept for the new toilet facilities at the Ben's Red Swings Playground. Right now, there's only porta potties there, and of course, the city, as well as they have gotten feedback over the years that it would be very nice to have a permanent restroom there. So the Layton Foundation has been fundraising, and they've indicated that they've raised over $70,000 to date, and they can give you more information on that. So what we're here to present tonight is the resolution where the city would accept the donation. They are going to fully build this restroom and donate it to the city. So we would accept the donation contingent upon an acceptable inspection by Public Works. And we're also approving the concept drawings, which were included in your package. The drawings, if you look at the elevations, they look very similar to the way the playground looks. It looks great. I mean, it'll fit right in.
Like the roof pitch.
Yep, the roof pitch and everything else. It's ADA accessible with the ramp to get up to the restrooms. It is above the floodplain elevations, and I believe they were aware of the map changes there too. One of our concerns was that the piping is included in a utility room, so it's not something that could get vandalized, and they have done that. So they have addressed any concerns that we have. I will mention that the Public Works Utilities branch will run the water main and they'll run the sewer main for them. So we're doing that work ourselves as sort of a donation back to this project. They need to have a small lift station for the sewer, and they will be installing that. That's a little bit more expensive and not something that our sewer branch does very often. You'll also see on the site plans that we're installing water meters. So there will be a meter that goes to the restrooms, and a meter that then goes to that mister station that's in Benjamin Springs. We're doing that for our own water accounting purposes. You know, we're not billing anyone, it's city water, but we have to track our water losses every year, and this is an area where we can account for this water and know how much that mister is actually putting out every year. Once this project is done, they will, as I said, donate it to the city, and we will assume maintenance responsibilities. So the city will be responsible for cleaning this and maintaining it. We will have some cost savings for not having the porta potties there, because right now we get those cleaned. So we'll have the janitorial services that the zoo uses cover this restroom as well. Also, Ben's Red Swings, this is inside the main fence, and our security guard for the zoo locks the fence every night and opens it in the morning. So these bathrooms won't be accessible after 8 p.m. and before 6 a.m. So from 8 p.m. to 6 p.m. they're locked with the rest of Ben's Red Swings. So I think you'd have to jump the fence, and it's a pretty significant fence. So if you can tell from the site plan, this is inside the gate. Right now there's just a couple little picnic tables there. It's not a very well used area. It's outside the tot lot, so you could have a kid playing in the tot lot and another kid running around to the restroom and still be able to watch your child. And that was important to us when we were talking about all the different siting options. At some point we were talking about outside the fence and different options, but this is nice. You are in the fence. You can have one kid in one place and watch another kid run over to the restroom safely.
So is it right by the zoo administration trailer? Is that, am I reading that right? In that back right corner, if I'm walking in from Picnic Island, if I'm walking in?
So if you're walking in from Picnic Island, I don't know if you can see this, you're walking in this way, and if you walk in, you know, there's that wall of tiles that kids have done all the different tiles off to your right. If you keep going right past the funny mirrors and go behind the funny mirrors, that's where this is going to go.
Okay, so in the front corner
in the front corner.
Okay.
Not as far back as the admin building.
I don't know why I had a really hard time orienting to this.
Well, you know, it's funny because the playground equipment looks so weird on a site plan. I felt the same way as many times as I've been there. It looks really odd on a site plan.
They didn't have descriptions on some of them. I would not have figured it out.
Well, you're not used to seeing the little boat and all those other things. But anyway, so none of the playground is changing at all. You know, the swings, the tot lot, everything is staying exactly the same. This is going in a space where right now there's some stepping stones and mulch. It's a, you know, just sort of a quiet space.
Can I ask, the star-shaped things on our little diagram here, are those lighting fixtures
Like,
or?
Up here?
Yeah.
Trees.
Those are trees,
They're
okay,
trees,
fine.
yes.
Where is lighting on this diagram? Are there any changes to the lighting scheme? As we had talked about in many times, talking about improving the lighting in that area.
Yes.
And then coming to conformance with whatever the city standard is with lighting.
I'm looking to see if that's a good question, and I'm not seeing that right away. I think that they had lights on the outside of the building. I'm not seeing that on their drawing, but I don't think site lighting wise, I'm not sure that that changed at all. But I think the exterior of the building, I think they were planning to have some lights.
Well, I think with any exterior of any building, we need to have all four sides lighted just for safety concerns.
Yes. Oh, here we go. Let's see. On their notes, provide exterior lights in covered porch area, south wall, west wall, and north wall. Lights to be flush mounted in soffit and provide uniform illumination of the face of the wall. Exterior lights to be controlled by photosensors and timers. Locate all controls in the utility room.
Good.
So they will have lighting on all four sides of the
Excellent.
building.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. This is not one that I would normally ask, but given the fire department's presentation in the last budget meeting, or their budget meeting, where is the access, the fire access, where they would hook up their hoses? Is that, since this is inside the fence, I don't want to have the same issue we have with the zoo.
That's a good question.
Animal health building.
I'm not sure that they have that because it's not an occupied building.
Yeah.
You know, there's
I
not.
don't think it would have
I don't
enough
think
to
it- I don't
see.
think
Okay, I
you
didn't
need
think
one.
so.
Could be occupied, depending on when it's.
No. If it's not a structure where someone would be working or sleeping, it wouldn't be subject to those rules.
Okay. That's why I don't normally ask those questions, because I don't know what I'm talking about. But
I was just thinking
It's like
back to that.
wastewater treatment plants.
Right.
For the
That's
rest
why
of
Jack's
us.
handling that.
All of us.
I mean, there would theoretically be plenty of water there with a stream that runs through. I mean, if they needed a pumper,
If they needed to
just
pump
pump it
from
right
that.
out of there.
What is the total cost? Do we know? Is that
You know, we don't know because I think they're trying to get a lot of materials donated. I know their original goal was to raise $100,000, but I don't know that. And, you know, a lot of times our resolutions would put a value on it. So that could be something we ask for them if that's important to have the value of the donation. They had just mentioned that they've raised $70,000, but I'm not sure what their goal is there.
We're accepting the unbuilt building, not the cash, and then having to bid at the building and do all
Yeah,
that.
we are accepted the completed project, so we are not building it. So it really, their procurement practices are not of our concern. You know, if they do get donated materials or donated labor, or
yeah,
however
that's
it's
where they're
done,
saving a lot of money.
we'll get the donation at the end. Which is how Ben's Red Swings was built also. You know, we're modeling it after that.
Regarding liability during the construction phase, are we going to provide that?
That's a good question. I would think their contractor would have their own liability insurance, and we would be an additional insured. Does that sound right, Mark?
That would be what
That
I
would
would
be
ask
typical,
for,
yes. Okay.
Sure we know that.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll ask that question.
this resolution is your acceptance of the gift, but as far as our regulation of the building, that's not really in this.
We're going to be looking this gift horse in the mouth, as a matter of fact. You know, it's just
One-
the way it
one
has to
other
be.
issue, and I may have to ask Matt this. The zoo just used some old grant money that had been around for a while to automate the doors. You mentioned the ADA access ramps, but if they get there and the door doesn't open on its own, that's still an issue. So I'm curious whether, I couldn't find, but I don't know where to look either, whether that was part of this or not.
That's a good question, and I do not recall if they put those in. I know we just did, like you said, at the zoo, but I'm not sure that, we can ask that question to them. I'll list that on my.
Thank you. It'll be so nice just to see the porta potties go.
Yes.
Forget that you have an actual bathroom, but just to see those go.
Yeah, this is great.
Well, yeah, this is fantastic, and I'm thinking one of the things that we're all going to want to do at the appropriate stage is, you know, proclamation for the Laytons,
Yes.
for Delmarva Veteran Builders, and for Andrew W. Booth Associates and Mr. Drew for everything they've done and donated to this project. Pretty exciting.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? All right, is there council consensus to move this forward to legislative session?
Yes.
Okay, so there is, and we'll bring Mr. Drew and Mr. Eccleston, or whoever comes here later, in to meet with us.
Great, thank you.
And feel free to not stick around.
I appreciate that. Thank you
bet.
very much.
Thank you.
Do we want to have Amanda call them and tell them?
I plan to.
Yeah, do you
Okay.
mind?
Oh,
Okay.
good, good. I was gonna call him also, so that's
Yeah,
great. Great.
my guess
If
is
they wanna come, they
7:15
come.
will probably be
Yeah,
about
I
the right
said
time.
about 7:15.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Well, I just meant for them to know that we've already discussed it.
Yeah.
They don't need to come, but if they want to, then they can.
Yeah, do you want to
Because they may
send them
choose
that?
not to.
You want to send them that?
Let him know he doesn't have to, but he's welcome to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that we are welcoming them if they want to come, but they don't
Okay.
have to come.
Okay, they could always come at the legislative session.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll let them know.
All right, and if you can just let Tom know,
Yeah, I'll-
once you hear from them. All right, cool. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to enter closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I'll still put a notice door in case you can't reach them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
We're going to pass on the way this about
Evidence?
employees eating in front of us.
Yeah, it's hardly fair.
Did you bring enough for everyone?
It goes down.
I saw you Saturday with your son.
I've been smelling Laura's popcorn this whole time.
I don't want popcorn, I want chips.
Oh, no, this was an tall one.
Yeah, that's a ripoff.
Blonde looks like my husband.
How much did you pay for that?
Blonde hair, it's left over from blue eyes. Well,
Oh.
she go off one
Oh.
side of the family. They had a blast.
Did they?
You look like you were having fun too, actually.
Absolutely. It was a nice day. It was great to be out. My 14-year-old didn't give me any flack about being there.
Wow, that was, what did you give him?
You know what?
Well, he was
We
pitching.
started to play the cornhole stuff.
Yeah, he was pitching beanbags. Yeah, that
We
was
played
fun.
it every Wednesday
Really?
at the
Oh my
VFW.
God.
Yeah.
Minute
I
stuff was
have
fun.
to admit, I didn't even really know how to play.
It's just a beanbag you put it on. And I didn't know what it was. It sounds all. And the guys are playing now. They like it now.
Yeah.
Cornhole? That's fun.
Wow.
I'm terrible at it, but it's fun.
Yeah, I'm horrible.
You're gonna say that I'm terrible at it?